The morning sun painted the wheat fields of New Busan colony in shades of gold. Kim Dae-ho stood on his porch watching the grain wave in the gentle wind. His cybernetic left arm gleamed in the light, while his real hand held a cup of bitter coffee. 3 jagged scars ran down the right side of his face from temple to jaw. They were gifts from the Centauri border wars that ended 5 years ago. Dae-ho preferred his quiet life now. The small farming colony sat at the edge of known space, where few people bothered him. His nearest neighbor lived 2 kilometers away. Most days he worked his fields alone with only the hum of farming machines for company. The nightmares came less often here. The screams of dying soldiers seemed quieter among the growing crops. A low rumble broke the peaceful morning. Dae-ho looked up to see 3 massive ships descending through the atmosphere. Their sleek black hulls caught the sunlight like mirrors. These were not human vessels. The ships landed in the town square of New Busan with barely a sound. Dust clouds rose around their landing struts. Dae-ho set down his coffee and walked inside, his small house. He pulled on a clean shirt and checked his appearance in the mirror. The scars made him look older than his 32 years. His black hair had streaks of gray that should not be there yet. War aged a man in ways beyond counting. By the time he reached town, the streets were full of people. Everyone stared at the alien ships with mixtures of fear and wonder. Most colonists had never seen aliens up close. New Busan was too small and remote to get many visitors. The ships opened with soft, hissing sounds. Tall figures emerged wearing flowing robes that seemed to shimmer with their own light. They stood nearly 3 meters tall with golden fur covering their bodies. Their faces looked like a cross between lions and humans. Large amber eyes surveyed the crowd with intelligence and something that might have been disdain. These were the Korathi. Dae-ho had fought alongside them during the war. He knew their proud warrior culture valued strength above all else. They rarely visited human colonies without important reasons. The largest Korathi stepped forward. Her robe was deep purple and covered in silver symbols. A crown of twisted metal sat upon her head. This could only be Empress Nala herself. Dae-ho had seen her image in military briefings but never expected to meet her in person. Park Ji-won, the colony administrator, hurried forward. He was a thin, nervous man who sweated when faced with difficult situations. Today, sweat ran down his face in rivers. "Your Majesty," he said with a deep bow, "New Busan colony welcomes you. How may we serve the great Korathi Empire?" The Empress looked over the crowd with cold amber eyes. Her gaze stopped when it found Dae-ho. She studied his scars and cybernetic arm for a long moment. "I seek the human warrior, Kim Dae-ho," she said. Her voice carried the growling undertones common to her species. During the Centauri Wars, he showed great courage fighting beside Korathi forces. "I bring him a gift of honor." Dae-ho felt every eye in the crowd turned toward him. He had hoped his war service would stay buried in military files. He stepped forward reluctantly. "I am Kim Dae-ho, Your Majesty," he said. He did not bow as deeply as Park Ji-won had. Old soldiers showed respect, but not submission. The Empress smiled, showing sharp canine teeth. 2 smaller Korathi approached, carrying what looked like a travel cage. Through the bars, Dae-ho could see a small, furry shape curled in one corner. "This is Miru," the Empress said. "She is a cub of noble bloodline. I gift her to you in recognition of your service to both our peoples." The cage was placed at Dae-ho's feet. Inside lay the smallest Korathi he had ever seen. Her silver fur was patchy and dull. Her golden eyes were clouded with pain or sickness. The cub barely seemed to be breathing. "Your Majesty," Dae-ho said carefully, "I am honored by your gift. But I'm just a farmer now. I know nothing about caring for Korathi cubs." The Empress waved away his concerns. "You will learn," she said. Consider this a chance to forge new bonds between our species. Park Ji-won stepped closer to Dae-ho. His voice was barely a whisper. You cannot refuse an Empress gift, he said. It would be a diplomatic disaster for the entire colony. Dae-ho looked down at the sick cub again. Something about her condition troubled him. Korathi were known for their perfect health and vitality. This cub looked like she was dying. I accept your generous gift, Your Majesty, he said finally. I will care for her as best I can. Excellent, the Empress replied. She turned back toward her ships. Her entourage followed without another word. Within minutes, the vessels were lifting off and disappearing into the sky. The crowd began to disperse, talking excitedly among themselves. Park Ji-won mopped sweat from his forehead with a dirty handkerchief. What just happened, he asked no one in particular. Why would an Empress come all this way to give you a sick animal? Dae-ho picked up the cage. The cub inside whimpered softly at the movement. Her breathing was shallow and rapid. I do not know, he said, but I intend to find out. He carried the cage back to his farm as questions swirled in his mind. The Korathi valued strength above all else. They would never give away a sick cub unless there was some other purpose. The Empress had watched him too carefully. Her smile had held no warmth. Back at his house, Dae-ho opened the cage carefully. The cub did not try to escape. She lay on her side, breathing in short gasps. When he reached out to touch her, she did not pull away. The moment his fingers made contact with her fur, something strange happened. The cub's breathing seemed to ease slightly. Her clouded eyes focused on his face with what might have been hope. Dae-ho lifted her gently from the cage. She weighed almost nothing. Her fur felt thin and brittle under his hands. But wherever his skin touched hers, she seemed to grow slightly stronger. What are you, little one? He whispered. And what am I supposed to do with you? The cub made a soft, purring sound. It was weak, but it was the first sign of life he had heard from her. He carried her inside and made a soft bed near the fireplace. She curled up in the blankets, but her eyes never left his face. That night, Dae-ho sat beside her bed, watching her breathe. Every few hours he would touch her gently, and she would seem to improve for a while. By morning, he was convinced something very unusual was happening. He had been a soldier for 10 years before becoming a farmer. He knew when something was not what it seemed. The Empress had not come here to honor him. She had come here to test something. The question was what? As dawn broke over New Busan Colony, the cub opened her eyes and looked directly at him. For just a moment, they seemed clearer and brighter. Then she closed them again and went back to sleep. Dae-ho made himself breakfast and tried to think. He was a simple man who wanted a quiet life, but quiet lives had a way of becoming complicated when empresses started giving gifts. Outside his window, the wheat continued to grow under the alien sun. Inside his house, a dying cub fought for every breath. And somewhere in space, the Korathi Empire watched and waited to see what would happen next. The unwanted gift had arrived. Now Dae-ho would have to discover what price would be demanded in return. 3 days passed since the Empress left her strange gift. Kim Dae-ho barely slept during those nights. He stayed close to the sick cub, checking on her every few hours. Each time he touched her, she seemed to breathe easier. When he moved away, her condition worsened again. On the 4th morning, Dae-ho heard vehicles approaching his farm. He looked out the window to see a military transport truck followed by a smaller medical vehicle. Both bore the symbols of the New Busan Colonial Authority. Dr. Lee Minju stepped out of the medical vehicle. She was a tall woman with short black hair and kind eyes. Dae-ho had served with her during the final year of the Centauri Wars. She had saved his life twice, and countless other soldiers beyond counting. "Hello, Dae-ho," she said, walking up to his porch. "I heard you received an interesting visitor from the Korathi Empire. Park Ji-won sent word that you might need medical assistance. Dae-ho nodded toward his house. The cub is inside. She is very sick, but something strange is happening when I touch. Her Dr. Minju carried her medical scanner and several containers of equipment. She had always been thorough in her work. During the war, her field hospital had the lowest death rate in the entire sector. "Show me," she said simply, inside the house. The cub lay curled in her makeshift bed. Her breathing was still shallow, but she no longer seemed to be getting worse. When Dr. Minju approached with her scanner, the device immediately began making urgent beeping sounds. Minju frowned at the readings. She moved closer and ran a full body scan. The beeping grew louder and more frantic. "Dae-ho, this cub is dying," she said quietly. "According to these readings, she should already be dead. Her body is full of some kind of parasitic organism." "What kind of parasites?" Dae-ho asked. "I have never seen anything like this. They are microscopic, but there are millions of them throughout her entire system. They appear to be consuming her from the inside." Dr. Minju continued her scans, moving the device over every part of the cub's body. The readings showed parasites in her blood organs, muscles, and even her brain tissue. "How is she still alive?" Minju asked, more to herself than to Dae-ho. "Watch this," Dae-ho said. He knelt beside the cub and gently placed his hand on her side. Within moments, her breathing improved. The scanner readings changed, showing decreased parasite activity in the areas where his skin made contact. Dr. Minju stared at the scanner in disbelief. The parasites in the contact zones were not dying, but they were behaving differently. Instead of consuming tissue, they seemed to be repairing it. "I need blood samples from both of you," she said urgently. "Something in your biology is affecting these organisms." They spent the next hour taking samples. Dr. Minju drew blood from Dae-ho and carefully extracted small tissue samples from the cub. She also collected samples of the parasites themselves, using microneedles. "I will analyze these back at the medical center," she said, packing her equipment. "Do not leave the cub alone for long periods. Whatever is happening between you two is keeping her alive." After Dr. Minju left, Dae-ho sat beside the cub, thinking about what he had learned. Millions of parasites were killing her slowly, but his touch somehow changed their behavior. It made no sense according to anything he knew about biology. The next morning brought another visitor. Choi Sun-woo was a young man barely out of university, who worked as the colony's xenobiologist. He studied alien plants and animals for the colonial authority. His excitement was obvious as soon as he stepped out of his small vehicle. "Mr. Kim," he said breathlessly. Dr. Minju shared her preliminary findings with me. "What you have here could change everything we know about interspecies biology." Sun-woo carried several portable computers and reference databases. He set up his equipment on Dae-ho's kitchen table and began cross-referencing the parasite samples. "These organisms are called Veltar parasites," he said after an hour of searching. "They were created as a biological weapon by an extinct race called the Voidlings over 1,000,000 years ago." "A biological weapon?" Dae-ho asked. "Yes. They were designed to consume all organic matter they encountered. According to these records, they destroyed dozens of civilizations before the Voidlings themselves went extinct." Sun-woo pulled up more information on his computer screen. The records showed images of dead worlds where the parasites had consumed every living thing. But here is the interesting part. He continued. The records mention that one ancient race developed a defense against the Veltar. They created some kind of biological counteragent that could convert the parasites from destructive to symbiotic. What race was that, Dae-ho asked, though he suspected. He already knew the answer. The records are unclear, but the genetic markers match human DNA. More specifically, they match the genetic patterns found in humans who experienced severe trauma and recovered from it. Dae-ho looked down at his cybernetic arm and touched the scars on his face. He had certainly experienced trauma during the war. The nightmares and damaged memories were proof of that. "You think my war injuries have something to do with this?" he asked. Not the injuries themselves, but how your body and mind healed from them. Trauma recovery creates specific biochemical changes in human genetics. Those changes appear to activate dormant defensive mechanisms left over from our ancient ancestors. Dr. Minju returned that afternoon with complete analysis results. Her face was serious as she spread printouts across Daeho's table. The blood work confirms what Sunwoo suspected, she said. Your immune system is not just fighting the parasites, it is communicating with them somehow. Your white blood cells are sending chemical signals that reprogram their behavior. Over the following days, the cub's condition continued to improve. She began eating small amounts of food and even attempted to stand on shaky legs. Most importantly, she started responding to Daeho's voice and presence even when he was not touching her. The parasites are adapting, Dr. Minju explained during one of her daily visits. They are learning to cooperate with her natural biology instead of destroying it. In essence, they are becoming part of her immune system. Is that good or bad? Daeho asked. I honestly do not know. This kind of symbiotic relationship has never been observed before. She could become stronger than any normal Karathi, or the process could kill her if something goes wrong. On the 7th day after the Empress visit, something remarkable happened. The cub stood up, walked across the room, and climbed onto Daeho's lap. Her movements were still weak, but they showed coordination and purpose that had been absent before. Her eyes were clearer now, showing intelligence and awareness. When she looked at Daeho, there was recognition and what might have been affection. She made soft purring sounds that vibrated through her small body. Hello, little Miru, Daeho said, using the name the Empress had given her. Are you feeling better? Miru tilted her head as if understanding his words. She touched his hand with one small paw, and the purring grew louder. Dr. Minju ran her scanner over Miru again. The readings showed that the parasites had spread throughout her body, but they were no longer consuming tissue. Instead, they appeared to be strengthening her muscles, improving her reflexes, and enhancing her sensory capabilities. The symbiosis is complete, Minju said with wonder in her voice. She is no longer infected. She is evolved. That night, Daeho sat on his porch with Miru curled in his lap. The stars above New Busan seemed brighter than usual. In the distance, he could see lights from the town where people lived their simple lives, unaware that something unprecedented had just occurred. Miru was no longer dying. She was becoming something new, and somehow his own damaged genetics had made it possible. The Empress had known this would happen. She had brought Miru here not as a gift, but as a test. The question was, what would happen when the Karathi Empire learned that the test had succeeded? Daeho had a feeling his quiet farming days were about to end. 2 weeks after Miru began her recovery, the black ships returned to New Busan. This time they brought more than just the Empress. A full military escort of 12 vessels descended from the clouds like metal hawks hunting prey. Kim Daeho stood in his wheat field watching the ships land. Miru sat beside him, no longer the sick cub she had been. Her silver fur now gleamed with health, and her golden eyes held intelligence that seemed almost human. She had grown larger and stronger each day as the symbiosis completed itself. The ships landed in formation around the town square. Armed Karathi warriors emerged first, checking for threats that did not exist. Behind them came Empress Nala, dressed in battle armor instead of ceremonial robes. Her amber eyes burned with barely controlled anger. Beside the Empress walked a massive Karathi male wearing the insignia of a military commander. His brown fur was marked with battle scars, and his left ear was missing entirely. This was General Keth, whose reputation for ruthlessness was known even among human military forces. Park Ji-won met the Karathi delegation at the edge of town. The colony administrator looked even more nervous than before. Sweat stained his shirt, despite the cool morning air. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing deeply. New Busan colony welcomes your return. How may we serve you? The Empress ignored his greeting entirely. Her gaze swept the town until it found Deho standing in the distance. She pointed one clawed finger toward him. Bring me the human warrior and the cub he carries, she commanded. Do it now. Within minutes, Karathi soldiers surrounded Deho's farm. They moved with military precision, taking positions that would prevent any escape. General Keth approached the farmhouse, flanked by 6 heavily armed warriors. "Human!" the general growled. "You will come with us immediately. Bring the infected creature." Deho did not move from his position beside Miru. The cub had grown protective of him over the past weeks. Her muscles tensed as she sensed the threat from the approaching soldiers. "I am on my own land, General," he said calmly. "State your business or leave." General Keth snarled, showing his sharp teeth. "Insolent human! You have no idea what forces you are dealing with." The Empress appeared behind her soldiers. Her armor gleamed like polished obsidian in the morning light. When she saw Miru, her expression changed from anger to something approaching awe. "Impossible," she whispered. "The symbiosis has completed successfully." Colonial Governor Yoon Hyok arrived with a small security detail. He was an older man with gray hair and the calm demeanor of someone who had dealt with difficult situations before. He stepped between the Karathi and Deho, with his hands raised peacefully. "Your Majesty," he said respectfully, "perhaps we could discuss this situation calmly. Mr. Kim is a respected member of our community." The Empress finally looked away from Miru to address the governor. "There is nothing to discuss," she said coldly. "The human and the creature will come with us for scientific study. This is not a request." Dr. Lee Minju pushed through the crowd of onlookers. She carried her medical scanner and looked determined, despite being greatly outnumbered. "Your Majesty," she said, stepping forward, "I have been monitoring this case since you left the cub here. What has happened is remarkable, but these beings are not test subjects. They are living creatures with rights." General Keth moved toward Dr. Minju threateningly. "The human medic speaks of things beyond her understanding," he growled. That was when Miru acted. She moved faster than anyone expected, leaping between the general and Dr. Minju. Her claws extended and her muscles coiled with newfound strength. A low growling sound came from deep in her throat. The general stepped back in surprise. Karathi cubs were not supposed to move that fast or show such tactical thinking. Miru continued to growl, keeping herself positioned to protect both Deho and Dr. Minju. "Fascinating," the Empress said, studying Miru carefully. "The parasites have not just enhanced her physical capabilities, they have improved her intelligence and social bonding instincts." Choi Sunwoo appeared at Dr. Minju's side carrying one of his portable computers. He had been working constantly to understand the implications of Mira's transformation. "Your Majesty," he said nervously, "I have discovered something important about the Veltar parasites. They are not random infections. They are part of an ancient biological defense system." The Empress turned her attention to the young scientist. "Explain," she commanded. Sunwoo activated his computer showing genetic analysis charts. The parasites were created to identify and eliminate threats to organic life, but they were also designed to form symbiotic relationships with species that carried specific genetic markers. What genetic markers? The Empress demanded. "Those found in humans who have experienced severe trauma and recovered from it." The voidlings who created the parasites were fighting an even greater threat. They needed allies who could adapt and survive under impossible conditions. The Empress exchanged glances with General Keth. Both Karathi seemed to understand implications that the humans were still discovering. "How many humans carry these genetic markers?" General Keth asked. Sunwoo checked his data. Based on military medical records, approximately 30% of combat veterans show the necessary genetic patterns. The percentage is higher among those who survived multiple traumatic events. Dr. Minju stepped forward again. "Your Majesty," she said, "the Veltar plague has been killing your people for decades. If humans can help cure it, why are you treating this as a military operation? The Empress was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. Because the plague is spreading, she said finally. 3 core worlds in our empire are now infected. Millions of our people are dying. We need to understand how this symbiosis works before it is too late. Governor Yoon Hyok moved closer to the Empress. Then let us work together, he suggested. Our people can help yours, but not through force or coercion. There must be trust between our species. General Keth growled his disagreement. We do not have time for trust, human. Our people are dying while you debate philosophy. Miru suddenly stood and walked directly toward the Empress. Every weapon in the area turned toward her, but she showed no fear. She approached the massive alien ruler with calm confidence. The Empress knelt down as Miru reached her. The cub placed one paw on the Empress' armored hand and looked directly into her amber eyes. For a moment, neither moved. She is trying to communicate with me, the Empress said with wonder. I can feel something in my mind. Images of healing and cooperation rather than conquest. Dr. Minju raised her scanner toward both Miru and the Empress. The device showed energy patterns flowing between them. The parasites in Miru were attempting to establish communication with the Empress biology. The symbiosis is more advanced than we realize, Dr. Minju said excitedly. She can share the healing process with others of her species. Daiho finally spoke, breaking the tension that had built around them. Your Majesty, he said. Miru was dying when you brought her here. Now she is healthy and strong. We can teach your people how this works, but it cannot be forced. The bonding requires trust and time. The Empress stood slowly still, looking down at Miru. The cub returned to Daiho's side, but continued to watch the Karathi ruler with intelligent eyes. Very well, the Empress said finally. We will try cooperation first, but understand this human. If your methods fail, our empire will take what it needs by force. General Keth clearly disagreed with this decision, but remained silent. The other Karathi warriors lowered their weapons, but stayed alert. Governor Yoon Hyuk stepped forward. Then let us begin immediately. We can establish a research facility here on New Busan where humans and Karathi can work together safely. As the aliens returned to their ships, Daiho sat down heavily on his porch steps. Miru climbed onto his lap and began purring softly. The sound comforted him as it had every day since her recovery began. Dr. Minju joined them, looking tired but hopeful. This is just the beginning, she said quietly. If we can replicate what happened with Miru, we might save millions of lives. Daiho stroked Miru's fur, thinking about the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. He had wanted a quiet life away from war and conflict. Instead, he had become the center of a galactic crisis that could determine the fate of entire civilizations. The Karathi revelation had changed everything. Now the real work would begin. News of Miru's transformation spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Within 1 month of the Empress' visit, representatives from 3 major alien civilizations arrived at New Busan Colony. The small farming settlement became the center of galactic attention overnight. Kim Dae-ho stood in the newly constructed medical facility watching aliens he had never seen before. The crystalline solari looked like living gemstones that reflected light in impossible patterns. The insectoid hive nexus delegates moved with perfect coordination, as if controlled by a single mind. All of them had come because the Veltar plague threatened every form of organic life in the galaxy. Captain Im So-young of the United Earth Federation. Cruiser Incheon arrived with a team of specialists. She was a capable woman in her 40s who had commanded deep space missions for over 15 years. Her ship brought doctors, scientists, and military personnel to help with the growing crisis. Mr. Kim, she said during their first meeting. Earth. Command has confirmed Veltar outbreaks on 7 human colonies. The death rate is approaching 90% on infected worlds. We need your help desperately. Beside Captain Im stood Dr. Han Minho, the Federation's leading geneticist. He was a quiet man who spoke carefully and precisely about scientific matters. Our analysis confirms what Dr. Lee Minju discovered, he said. Human veterans with trauma recovery patterns can potentially form symbiotic bonds with the parasites. But the process is extremely dangerous. Colonel Quan Jemin, the military strategist, studied tactical displays showing infected systems across human space. Each red dot represented millions of people facing death from the spreading plague. How many humans have the necessary genetic markers, he asked Dr. Han Minho. Based on military medical records, approximately 40,000 veterans show strong potential. Another 100,000 show partial markers that might work under the right conditions. Daeho felt the weight of those numbers pressing down on him. Hundreds of thousands of people whose lives might depend on a process he barely understood himself. Miru had grown larger and more intelligent over the past month. She now stood nearly as tall as Daeho's waist, and her golden eyes showed understanding that rivaled any sentient being. She rarely left his side and seemed to sense his emotional state at all times. The bonding process cannot be rushed, Dr. Lee Minju explained to the gathered representatives. It requires genuine emotional connection between human and alien subjects. Laboratory conditions are not sufficient. A Solari delegate named Lux stepped forward. Her crystalline body sang with harmonic tones as she moved. "How long does successful bonding require?" she asked. "It varies," Dr. Minju replied. Mr. Kim and Miru took 2 weeks, but they started with severe trauma conditions on both sides. Other attempts have taken anywhere from days to months. Other attempts? Daeho asked. He had not known about additional cases. Captain Im looked uncomfortable. "We have been trying to replicate your success, Mr. Kim. So far, we have had limited results." "What kind of results?" Daeho demanded. Dr. Han Minho pulled up medical charts on his portable display. Of 12 human volunteers, 6 have achieved partial symbiosis. 3 have formed complete bonds similar to yours. 2 died during the process, and 1 remains in critical condition. Daeho felt sick thinking about volunteers dying while trying to copy what had happened to him and Miru. He had not asked for this responsibility. The failures occur when the emotional bonding is insufficient, Dr. Minju explained. The parasites need to sense genuine care and protection from the human partner. Volunteers motivated only by duty or fame cannot achieve the necessary connection. A Hive Nexus delegate called Zack spoke with the buzzing voice common to his species. "Our collective faces extinction if this plague spreads further. We must find ways to accelerate the bonding process." Colonel Quan Jamin spread tactical maps across the conference table. "Time is running out," he said grimly. "Intelligence reports indicate the plague is spreading faster than our ability to treat it. We need trained bond warriors on every infected world within 6 months. Trained bond warriors," Daeho repeated. "You want to turn this into a military operation?" Captain Im leaned forward. "Mr. Kim, we understand your concerns, but the scale of this crisis requires organized response. People are dying while we debate methods." Daeho looked down at Miru, who had been listening to the conversation with obvious understanding. Her intelligence had grown dramatically since the symbiosis completed. Sometimes he felt she understood the situation better than the humans and aliens discussing it. "What do you think, little one?" he asked quietly. Miru moved to the center of the room where all the delegates could see her clearly. She began making soft vocalizations that sounded almost like speech. Though no one could understand her words, the emotional content was clear. She was trying to communicate something important. Dr. Han Minho aimed his scanner at Miru while she vocalized. The readings showed complex brain activity patterns unlike anything recorded from normal Karathi. She is attempting to establish communication links with all the alien delegates simultaneously, he said with excitement. The parasites have enhanced her telepathic capabilities beyond normal Karathi limits. Suddenly, Lux, the Solari delegate, began to glow brighter. Her crystalline body resonated with harmonic frequencies that filled the room with beautiful sounds. "I can hear her thoughts," Lux said with wonder. "She is showing me images of healing and cooperation." The bonding process is not just medical. It requires spiritual and emotional harmony between species. Zach, the Hive Nexus delegate, started clicking rapidly in the communication pattern of his people. "The young Karathi speaks wisdom," he buzzed. "Our collective has been approaching this crisis with logic alone. True symbiosis requires understanding between minds, not just bodies." Captain Im looked frustrated. "This is all very interesting, but we need practical solutions. People are dying right now on infected worlds." Nam Yunji stepped forward from among the Earth Federation personnel. She was a former military medic who had volunteered for the bonding program despite the risks. "Captain," she said respectfully, "I have been working with Dr. Minju for 2 weeks, trying to prepare for symbiosis with a Solari partner. The process cannot be rushed without fatal consequences." "What have you learned?" Deho asked. "That every human-alien pairing must develop their own unique relationship. The parasites adapt differently to each combination of personalities and biology. What worked for you and Miru might kill someone else if copied exactly." Shin Tae-hyun, another volunteer, spoke up. He was a young man whose family had died in alien raids years earlier. His motivation for joining the program came from a desire for redemption rather than revenge. "We need training facilities on multiple worlds," he said. "Places where humans and aliens can spend time together safely while bonding occurs naturally. Military pressure will only cause more failures." Dr. Han Minho nodded agreement. The successful cases all involved extended contact periods and genuine, emotional investment from both partners. "We cannot manufacture that in laboratories." Emperor Nala, who had remained quiet during most of the discussion, finally spoke. "The Karathi Empire will provide facilities and infected volunteers for the bonding program, but we require assurance that successful human partners will help cure our people." "Of course, Your Majesty," Captain Im replied. "Earth Federation is committed to sharing this technology with all allied species." "It is not technology," Miru suddenly said, in clear human speech. Everyone in the room froze in shock. Her voice was young and feminine, but carried the wisdom of someone much older. "It is friendship." She continued, looking around the room at each delegate. "The parasites do not respond to science or duty. They respond to love and trust between beings who choose to help each other." The room remained silent as the implications of Mira's words sank in. She had not just learned to speak human language. She had learned to understand the deeper meaning behind their crisis. Deho knelt beside Miru and gently touched her fur. "When did you learn to speak?" he asked softly. "I always could," she replied. "But I needed to understand your language of the heart before I could use your language of words." Dr. Minju aimed her scanner at both Deho and Miru. The readings showed their brain patterns had synchronized completely. They were no longer just human and alien who had bonded. They had become something entirely new. Captain Im looked at her tactical displays, showing infected worlds across the galaxy. "Then we build friendship facilities instead of military training centers," she said finally. "We give humans and aliens time to choose each other freely." The galactic crisis had revealed its true nature. This was not a medical problem to be solved with science. It was a spiritual challenge that would test whether different species could truly trust and care for each other. The fate of the galaxy now rested on the power of friendship between strangers who had every reason to fear each other instead. 6 months after Empress Nala first brought Miru to New Busan Colony, the small farming settlement had become the most important location in the galaxy. Friendship facilities stretched across 3 continents where humans and aliens worked together to form the symbiotic bonds that could save entire species. Kim Dae-ho walked through the central complex with Miru at his side. She had grown to full adult size, and her silver fur now held patterns of blue light that pulsed with her heartbeat. The parasites had changed her in ways no one fully understood. Around them, other bonded pairs worked together on various tasks. Nam Yoonji and her Solari partner Lux could manipulate energy fields to create beautiful light sculptures. Shin Tae-hyun and his Hive Nexus companion Zack moved with perfect coordination, solving complex engineering problems. These bonded pairs had become known as Bond Warriors, though most of them had never fought in any war. The name reflected their role as defenders of life against the spreading plague, rather than traditional soldiers. Each Bond Warrior pair was unique. Some specialized in healing work, helping newly infected beings survive the dangerous early stages of symbiosis. Others focused on research discovering new applications for the parasitic bonds. A few worked as diplomatic ambassadors, helping different species understand and trust the bonding process, but not everyone welcomed these developments. Admiral Bae Seong-jun of the Earth Defense Force stood in his flagship office studying reports from across human space. He was a career military man who believed in human superiority and viewed the Bond Warriors as a dangerous contamination of human purity. Captain Im, he said to Captain Im So-young, who had been reassigned to oversee Bond Warrior operations. These creatures you call Bond Warriors are no longer fully human. How can we trust them to represent Earth interests? Captain Im kept her voice calm despite her growing frustration with the Admiral. Sir, the Bond Warriors have saved over 2 million lives in the past 6 months. Their loyalty to humanity has never been questioned. Admiral Bae activated a holographic display showing genetic analysis charts. Look at these readings, Captain. The so-called bonded humans show DNA alterations that classify them as a separate subspecies. They are evolving beyond human norms. With respect, Sir Captain Im replied, evolution is not contamination. The Bond Warriors represent humanity's future, not its destruction. Meanwhile, on the Karathi homeworld, similar tensions were rising. Prince Vek's brother to Empress Nala commanded a faction of traditional nobles who viewed the symbiotic bonds as contamination of pure Karathi bloodlines. Prince Vex stood before a gathering of noble warriors in the ancient Hall of Claws. His golden fur was unmarked by any signs of bonding, and his amber eyes burned with fanatical intensity. "My brothers," he said, his voice carrying across the vast chamber, "our Empress has allowed alien parasites to corrupt our most sacred traditions. The bonded Karathi are no longer true members of our species." The assembled nobles growled their agreement. Many had lost family members to the Vel-Tar plague, but they refused to accept human assistance as the solution. "We must act to preserve the purity of our race," Prince Vex continued. "The human Bond Warriors and their contaminated Karathi partners must be eliminated before they spread their genetic pollution further." Unknown to the gathering Empress, Nala had placed loyal spies among the noble families. Within hours, she knew of her brother's treasonous plans. Back on New Busan Colony, Dae-ho sensed growing tension in the political situation. His bond with Miru had developed telepathic elements that let them share thoughts and emotions directly. Through her connections to other bonded Karathi, he could feel the fear and anger building in their society. "Something is wrong," he told Dr. Lee Minju during one of their regular medical examinations. "The Karathi Bond Warriors are receiving threatening messages from their homeworld." Dr. Minju nodded grimly. "We have been monitoring similar problems among human populations. Admiral Bae has been spreading propaganda claiming the Bond Warriors are no longer human." "Are we still human?" Dae-ho asked. The question had troubled him for weeks as he noticed changes in his own body and mind. Dr. Minju considered her answer carefully. "You are human, plus something more. The symbiosis has enhanced your capabilities without destroying your essential humanity. But some people fear change even when it saves lives." Miru spoke up from where she lay on the examination table. Fear makes people do stupid things, she said. Prince Vex is planning to attack this facility. How do you know that? Dr. Minju asked. The bonded Korathi share a connection through the parasites, Miru explained. We can sense each other's thoughts and emotions across great distances. Prince Vex. Followers have been discussing their plans without realizing we can hear them. When will they attack? Daeho asked. Soon Miru replied. They plan to strike during the diplomatic summit when Empress Nala visits next week. They want to kill her and blame the humans for her death. Dr. Minju immediately contacted Captain Im with this information. Within hours, Bond warrior pairs across the galaxy received warnings about the coming attack, but they also received orders that troubled many of them. Admiral Bay wants us to arrest all bonded Korathi as potential security threats, Captain Im told Daeho reluctantly. He claims they could be controlled by enemy telepathic influences. That is insane, Daeho replied. The bonded Korathi are trying to save their own people from the plague. Why would they work with rebels who want to destroy the cure? Because Admiral Bay sees all aliens as enemies regardless of their intentions, Captain Im said. He would rather let millions die than trust non-human allies. The diplomatic summit began 3 days later with representatives from dozens of species gathering on New Busan. Empress Nala arrived with a small honor guard, believing she was among friends and allies. Prince Vex struck at dawn on the second day of the summit. His assault ships approached New Busan under false diplomatic credentials. By the time planetary defenses detected the deception, it was too late to prevent the attack. Korathi warriors loyal to Prince Vex landed near the diplomatic complex and began advancing on the main conference center. Daeho and Miru were among the first to respond. Their bond had grown so strong that they moved as a single unit, anticipating each other's actions perfectly. Miru's use of enhanced strength and speed, while Daeho provided tactical thinking and human technology skills. Around them, other bond warrior pairs rallied to defend the facility. Nam Yunji and Lux created energy barriers that stopped incoming weapons fire. Shin Tae-hyun and Zack coordinated evacuation procedures for the civilian delegates, but the attackers had come prepared to face bond warriors. Prince Vex had brought weapons designed specifically to disrupt the parasitic symbiosis. When his soldiers fired these weapons at bonded pairs, both human and alien partners collapsed in agony. The battle raged for 6 hours as bond warriors fought desperately to protect the diplomatic summit. Many fell to the anti-symbiosis weapons, but others adapted, finding ways to shield their partners from the disrupting effects. During the height of the fighting, something unexpected happened. Several of Prince Vex's soldiers were wounded and left behind by their retreating units. Instead of letting them die, the bond warriors brought the injured rebels to the medical facility for treatment. Dr. Minju and her team worked to save the lives of beings who had been trying to kill them moments before. Some of the wounded soldiers were infected with Veltar parasites that would have killed them within days. Without asking permission, Nam Yunji began the bonding process with one of the dying soldiers. The rebel Korathi was too weak to resist as the symbiosis took hold. Within hours, he was not only healed but fundamentally changed by the experience of genuine human compassion. Word of this spread quickly among Prince Vex's remaining forces. Many began to surrender rather than continue fighting against people who would risk their lives to save enemy wounded. Prince Vex himself was captured while trying to escape. He faced Empress Nala in chains, still defiant, despite his obvious defeat. "You have contaminated our species, sister," he snarled. "These human parasites will destroy everything we are." Empress Nala looked at the bond warrior pairs who had defended her life and saved her people. They stood together, human and alien, united by bonds stronger than blood or species loyalty. "They have not destroyed us, brother," she replied calmly. "They have helped us become something better than we were before." The Bond warriors had proven themselves in battle, but more importantly, they had proven that mercy and compassion could overcome hatred and fear. The galaxy was changing, and those changes would reshape the future of every species within it. 1 year had passed since Empress Nala first brought a dying cub to Kim Daeho's farm. Now he stood before the Galactic Council as humanity's first symbiotic ambassador, wearing simple clothes that reflected his farming background rather than diplomatic finery. Beside him, Miru had grown into a magnificent predator whose intelligence rivaled any council member. Her silver fur now held swirling patterns of blue and gold light that pulsed in harmony with Daeho's heartbeat. Their bond had become so complete that they often shared thoughts without speaking. The council chamber held representatives from over 50 species. Many had once viewed humans as primitive newcomers to galactic civilization. Now they looked to humanity as the bridge builders who had saved countless lives across the galaxy. Honorable delegates, Daeho began his address. 1 year ago, a plague threatened to destroy all organic life in our galaxy. Today, that same plague has become the foundation for unprecedented cooperation between our species. Dr. Lee Minju, now Director of Symbiotic Medicine, stood to present her annual report. She had worked tirelessly to establish bonding facilities on dozens of worlds, and her efforts had saved millions of lives. The Veltar Symbiosis Program has achieved remarkable success, she announced. We now have over 10,000 active Bond warrior pairs spread across 50 star systems. Each pair serves as both healer and protector, creating safe zones where infected beings can undergo transformation. The process had evolved far beyond simple medical treatment. Bond warriors specialized in different areas based on their unique partnerships. Some focused on healing work, helping newly infected beings survive the dangerous early stages. Others became explorers venturing into previously inaccessible regions of space. Fleet Admiral Park Chaewon stood to address the military applications. The first mixed crew starships are now operational, she reported. Human-alien Bond warrior teams serve together as exploration units capable of surviving in environments that would kill normal beings. These ships were preparing to venture into the most dangerous regions of space, including the Voidling ruins, where the original bioweapon had been created. Only Bond warriors could survive the radiation and toxic atmosphere of those dead worlds. Choi Sun-woo had been promoted to chief xenobiologist for the Symbiotic Alliance. His research had revealed that the parasites continued to evolve, creating new types of bonds with different capabilities. We have identified 17 distinct symbiosis variants, he explained to the council. Some enhance physical abilities, others improve mental capacity, and a few provide resistance to environmental hazards. The parasites adapt to meet the specific needs of each partnership. The most remarkable discovery was that children born to bond, warrior parents showed natural immunity to the Veltar plague. They could form symbiotic relationships without the dangerous bonding process that adults required. An entire generation was growing up viewing human-alien cooperation as completely normal, but the greatest change had occurred on New Busan Colony itself. Daeho's simple farm had become a pilgrimage site where beings from across the galaxy came seeking the bonding process. The colony now bustled with activity as hundreds of species worked together in ways previously thought impossible. Nam Yunji and her Solari partner Lux had established a healing center that treated beings who failed to achieve complete symbiosis. Their combined abilities could stabilize partial bonds and help patients develop stronger connections over time. Shin Tae-hyun and his Hive Nexus companion Zach ran training programs for new Bond warrior candidates. Their perfect coordination and tactical awareness made them ideal instructors for those learning to function as unified pairs. The political situation had also stabilized after Prince Vex's failed rebellion. Admiral Bae Seong-jun had been quietly reassigned to frontier patrol duties after his anti-Bond warrior policies proved unpopular with Earth populations. Most humans now viewed the Bond warriors as heroes, rather than contaminated beings. Empress Nayla had used the crisis to consolidate power within the Karathi Empire. The nobles who supported Prince Vex found themselves isolated as their own people embraced the symbiotic cure. Many former rebels now served as bond warriors themselves after experiencing the healing process firsthand. As Deho concluded his address to the Galactic Council, a new transmission arrived from deep space. Long-range sensors had detected another plague outbreak in a previously unexplored region of the galaxy. A different species was crying out for help against biological weapons they could not understand or defeat. The message was fragmentary but desperate. An insectoid race called the Chithari faced extinction from what appeared to be a variant of the voidling bioweapons. Their primitive technology could not cope with organisms designed to consume all organic matter. Captain Im So-young, now promoted to Admiral, stepped forward. The Federation is prepared to dispatch bond warrior teams to assist the Chithari, she announced. We have ships equipped for long-range rescue missions. Deho looked at Miru, who nodded her agreement. Their work was far from finished. The galaxy still held dangers that only human-alien cooperation could overcome. Your Majesty, he said, addressing Empress Nala, will the Karathi Empire join this mission? The Empress smiled, showing the sharp teeth that had once seemed threatening but now appeared friendly. The bond warriors represent the future of our species, she replied. We will go wherever we are needed. That evening, Deho and Miru sat on the porch of their original farmhouse, watching the sunset over New Busan. The colony spread out below them, filled with beings from dozens of worlds working together in harmony. Children, both human and alien, played together in the fields where Miru had once lain dying. Their laughter carried on the evening breeze as they chased each other through the growing wheat. Some showed the telltale signs of symbiotic enhancement, glowing eyes, or unusual physical abilities, but all seemed perfectly normal to their generation. New stars appeared in the darkening sky as space stations and ships took their positions around the planet. The symbiotic alliance had grown into a major galactic power based on cooperation rather than conquest. Dr. Minju joined them on the porch carrying 3 cups of tea. She had become like family over the past year, sharing in their successes and supporting them through difficult times. The council approved our request, she said, settling into a chair beside them. The Chithari rescue mission launches tomorrow with 50 bond warrior pairs and full medical support. Are you ready for another adventure? Deho asked Miru softly. Miru stretched her powerful limbs and looked toward the stars where unknown dangers waited. We were born ready, she replied. The parasites did not just save our lives, they gave us purpose. As night fell completely, the 3 friends sat together planning for the challenges ahead. The Veltar plague had brought death and destruction to the galaxy, but it had also created bonds between species that would never be broken. Deho thought about the scared and damaged veteran he had been just 1 year ago. The war had taken so much from him, but it had also prepared him for this greater calling. His scars and cybernetic arm no longer seemed like signs of weakness. They were proof that broken things could be healed and made stronger. The farmhouse that had once sheltered a dying alien cub now served as the symbolic heart of galactic cooperation. Pilgrims from across known space came to see the simple rooms where the first successful bonding had occurred. Tomorrow, they would leave New Busan, again to help another species facing extinction. The Bond Warriors' work was never finished because the galaxy held countless dangers that required their unique abilities. But tonight, Deho was content to sit with his bonded partner and oldest friend watching the peaceful colony they had helped create. The wheat still grew in his fields, tended now by automated systems while he traveled the stars. The simple farming life he had wanted seemed small compared to the universe of possibilities that had opened before them. Miru purred softly as she curled up beside his chair. The sound no longer reminded him of a sick animal fighting for life. It was the voice of hope and healing that had changed the fate of entire civilizations. The stars called to them promising new adventures and unknown challenges, but they would face whatever came together as they always had. Human and alien bonded not just by parasites, but by trust, friendship, and love. The new covenant between species had been written not in treaties or laws, but in the shared experiences of beings who chose to help each other despite every reason to remain apart. It was a covenant that would endure as long as there were those willing to reach across the darkness between worlds and offer their hand to a stranger in need. The Bond. Warriors were ready for whatever the galaxy would bring them next.